Anine, and welcome back to Niiji Sobriety Chat. And guess what? This is the birthday of my 12th year of sobriety. So, I want to start out by giving a shout out to my friend Harriet, who I share the same birthday with. Today is her 7th day. So, way to go. And many more. So I think a little bit I will reminisce. I remember that when I was first getting sober, I did not think at all that I was going to be able to do it. I didn't go to treatment because when I started, it was like 3 months actually before I let anybody know that I had quit doing pills and drinking. And I remember I told my boss at work, this is when I worked for the Chum, not my current job, and I told my boss that I hadn't drank for 3 months, and she's like, I smelled booze on your breath yesterday. So, and that just kind of, from the start to even my first announcement to anybody, I don't need any encouragement. I know what I had to do. I did it. And in the beginning, it was frightening. So it's okay to be scared. I felt like because I'd spent like, what, 41 years? Started when I was 9, quit when I was 50. I, well, started when I was 9, and then just before I turned 50, I guess. This is a better way to put it. But, yeah, I'd spent a long time doing that. And I told myself that I'd give it one honest shot. If I could do it, I could do it. If I couldn't, I couldn't, because I wasn't going to yo-yo back and forth and fight with it and then, feel guilty, and that would be wrecking my buzz. So it was either going to happen or it wasn't, and it happened. So, but in the beginning, it was, God, I felt like I was standing on like a thin sheet of glass or a thin sheet of ice, and I was waiting for it to break and fall into oblivion because, and some of you can relate to this, after that many years of being fucked up all, 24/7 pretty much, I didn't know how else to be. So, but, lucky the creator helped me find the strength within myself, which was already there, to accomplish this. And I think when you pray to your higher power and you ask for strength, it doesn't matter what you believe. Every deity, every creator created you in their own form. So you have what they have in them. Everything positive, every fault. And, they don't give you strength. You have that strength. You need to find out where it's at. And then you need to capitalize on it. So, so I spent, a little while being sober, and that's just, abstinence is just part of the equation. That's the small, easy part of the equation. I, wasn't really big on AA or NA, but I did go to some talking circles for a couple of years prior to the pandemic. Well, actually, prior to my employment my current employer. And, just because of everybody I know, it would have been a conflict of interest for me to be at them talking circles and have my job. And, a couple of things are, I didn't, I couldn't really speak freely. Like, if I was having a bad week or month with somebody at work, I couldn't vocalize that because, we talk about the anonymity of the meetings, the people talk, and we all know it. So, I didn't want to be bringing, anything, out there where it could have been used against me. Because sometimes when I'm having an issue with somebody, they don't know I'm having an issue with them. And, because a lot of times it's up to me to figure out how to resolve the issue in a good way without blah. And, so I didn't feel like really free to talk. And then there would be people at the meetings that would go through the program, and I just knew that, what they're saying at the meetings are full shit because they just weren't being honest with themselves. So that's, that's on them. But, I didn't want to be in a position to know their secrets either. And so during this period, and when I was transitioning from the talking circles to, delving deeper into my mental health, because I started to read a lot on why do we suffer from substance use disorder. And 99% of it is connected to some kind of trauma. Adult, childhood. And a lot of you that are sitting in sobriety today know that. Because, you had, fucked up shit happening in your childhood. Or, you had some traumatic trauma as an adult. And that leads us to want to numb ourselves all the time, even though we don't know that we're numbing ourselves. Because back when I was using, I didn't know this. I wasn't sitting there, yeah, I had a shitty childhood, so that's why I'm getting fucked up right now. That wasn't the case at all. I want to say for a while I truly enjoyed being intoxicated. I definitely did have some fun times. Towards the end, though, because I just didn't want to be around anybody I knew, especially. This was before I quit. I started going to like some upper end bars and stuff where, people I know wouldn't show up. And then in the end, I was just sitting at home. And typically I would, on a Monday, I would get 3 half gallons of Admiral Nelson. And that would last me 7 days. On the weekends, I'd maybe get some beer to supplement that, or some different kind of liquor to do shots. And I always had a good line on oxys or Lortab. So a typical night would be, I'd get off work 10 o'clock at night, start drinking. Sometimes I'd eat a pill at work just to kind of get me close to where I needed to be at by 10 o'clock. And then I would come home and crush up a bunch of pills. Used to have this black plate, dinner plate, and drink and, cut off a line every now and then. Watch TV or tunes. And then it just really wasn't fun anymore. And then I had some health problems come up. the big one was I started to get cirrhosis. At first, I'm like, I'm just going to drink myself to death, because we've all heard of people that drink themselves to death. If you have cirrhosis and you have tried to drink yourself to death, you realize it's very painful when you have cirrhosis. So, that wasn't doing it. I ended up in the ER. The doctor, cut me loose with some oxys. I didn't tell him what was actually going on. So he didn't relate it to cirrhosis. But I knew that, and at the time I only lived like a block and a half from the ER, and I'm walking home, and just like, you're a fucking addict, man. And I'm like, ask myself, do I want to die, or do I got shit to do yet? I have shit to do. There's no doubt in my mind that I would be dead or unable to work right now had I continued. None of you would know me in this respect. Other people would not know me from my involvement in the community. Everything from civil rights, missing and murdered women, sobriety. Those are all my causes, and I can't even tell you how many times I've been on the news or in the newspaper or been interviewed. And the Creator just laid out all these beautiful things for me. And very shortly after I became sober, Babette Sandman gave me the Duluth Eagle Center staff to take care of. And that was a big part of my sobriety, because of my respect for the culture. And, and if you're going to be carrying Eagle staff, you need to be sober. And part was, manning up as a veteran, Gitchida, Zimaganish in my community. And, and it's always good to hear people's stories, and I'd rather put mine out in this format. You can watch it at your own pace. I know there's some events I miss just because of, what day or night of the week they are, and it just doesn't fit into my schedule. And I'm really, I'm really a Gemini, because I got the duality. You wouldn't know it by looking at me, but at a certain time of the day, the extrovert turns off, and I want to be an introvert. I just want to be home with my cat. My circle is small. That works better for me. My inner circle is maybe 6 or 7 people. So, and that's what works for me. And sobriety looks different for everybody. So what worked for me might not work for you, and what worked for you might not have worked for me. So, what am I doing to celebrate today? I told my coworker I was going to get drunk. Not really. So I went and, this is my big celebration for the day. I washed my laundry. I did a little bit of shopping. I washed my truck, because I wanted to, do some springtime touch-up painting on it, because it was a harsh winter on the vehicle. And actually, it was the first today. I was taping and painting my vehicle in the snow, because I'm stubborn like that. Snow held off a little bit. I got all that done. It dried. I went out to West Duluth, and it started pouring, and I came back. the paint's done, but the truck's dirty again. So I got, maybe 4.5 hours on my clean truck. But that's okay, because that's what I wanted to accomplish. And I bought some snacks. My big celebratory dinner tonight is going to be sushi and shrimp fried rice. Got some other stuff, probably not really indicative of my diet, but if you're going to celebrate, you got to celebrate. I got some Pirates Boutte Cheddar Blast. And I guess that's about all. Just if you're sober, in sobriety and recovery, I am so happy for you, and I pray for you every day. If you're not at that spot yet, I pray for you every day. And look at how many of us are sober out loud to show you that you can do it, because none of us are any different than you. So I guess with that, I'm gonna say gigi wobman and see you next week.